G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to DCS World with Mags and the first video of 2018. Yes, the new year has come to pass and it's time to get back into the flight simming, and today we're taking out the MiG-15 Biz in DCS World 1.5. Now this is going to be one of my last DCS 1.5 videos, as Carcassus 2.5 is due to be released by the end of this month. Carcassus 2.5 is of course a total overhaul of the existing Black Sea map. It updates the terrain mesh, all of the textures, the buildings, everything. The entire map is being overhauled and upgraded to the same standard as NTTR, the Normandy 1944 map, and of course the new coming Hormuz map. So, having just armed the weapon systems, for those of you who are unsure exactly how this is done on the MiG-15, on the left-hand side of the cockpit, just on the left-hand side glass, you'll see 3 buttons in a small controller box. You press and hold each of those, and it charges the weapon systems and actually loads them. As each weapon is armed, there are 3 lights that sit just in front of the flight stick. They light up one after the other into amber, one for each of the 23mm and one of course for the 37mm cannon, letting you know. And you can just see the 37mm light just at the bottom of the screen now. So, what are we up to today? Well, we're going to go and do a little bit of ground strafing. There's a US air base, it's just on the coastline. It has a primary defense of F-86 Sabres. There is also a couple of C-130 transports on the runway. The objective is to destroy as many of these aircraft on the ground as we possibly can. If any of the F-86 Sabres manage to get off the ground, we are also to shoot those down before we RTB. The idea here is we're trying to soften up the air defense capability of the airbase and its ability to move personnel out of the area before a flight of bombers comes through and lays waste to everything that's left. Flight time from our runway to the AO is roughly 20 minutes at cruise speed, which of course I will be editing down in this video. So, a ground strafing mission in the MiG-15. This is not something that was completely unheard of, but it was something that was exceedingly rare in the real world. Definitely less common than similar styles of missions performed by the F-86 Sabre during the Korean War, and this largely comes down to the differences between the two aircraft. While the MiG-15 and the F-86 Sabre are often seen as being the opposing sides of the same coin, the reality is somewhat different. The F-86 was primarily designed as a fighter. Its role was air superiority, but it did have the capability of mounting some ground ordnance should the need arise. The MiG-15, on the other hand, was primarily designed as an interceptor, with the intent to intercept American bombers attempting to breach Soviet airspace. Its role as a fighter, while it was competent, was considered to be a secondary role for this particular aircraft. And this largely came down to Stalin's fear of America doing to the Soviet Union what it had done to Germany during World War II. Stalin had witnessed America's capability of mass-producing extremely good bombing aircraft, and coupled with the invention of the atomic bomb, had a fear that American bombers armed with atomic weapons would fly into Soviet airspace to devastate Soviet cities in the case of the next major war. And so the MiG-15 was designed to be the aircraft that Germany never really managed to create. An aircraft that could stop a massed American bomber attack under escort dead in its tracks. Alright, so at this point we have entered the AO. Now our cruise altitude was around 7 kilometers on the way in, but we are beginning our ascent now. And as you can hear, I've got the engines wound right back. This is because I don't want to accelerate too fast in this dive. The MiG-15 has an issue with Mach tuck. That is, the faster it goes, the aerodynamic center of the aircraft switches back and actually starts to affect the control surfaces. This can lead to total loss of control, so we want to avoid that. And we also want to get rid of these drop tanks because they're just excess weight that is going to reduce maneuverability, and doing any kind of ground attack, we do want to make sure that we have all of our maneuverability available. Now I'm also running short pops of the air brake here to continue sustaining speed. I'm not trying to decelerate in the dive, just maintain the airspeed that I had and no more. That way we have optimal control as we make our roll in on the runway. The runway itself is also not undefended. It does have 50 caliber, 20 and 37mm air defenses available, but no guided weapons. All guided weapons have been removed from this particular scenario, as it is supposed to be based during the era of the Korean War. So we can see the runway just off to the right. I'm just banking left at the moment. I'm trying to position myself so I can come straight down the flight line and unload directly on all the parked aircraft before they have a chance to react. and we're just uncaging the gun sight. This allows the reflex sight itself to move around on a gimbal, changing position based on the attitude of the aircraft, which should improve accuracy. Now the gun sight is set to standard air-to-air at this point in time, with a wingspan marking of 10 meters and range set to standard as well. You can adjust this, of course, but I didn't see any point. It suited my purposes just fine. Now I'll be opening up with just a 37mm cannon first on the first pass. I want to keep the 23mm fully charged, just in case they do manage to scramble any F-86 Sabres. The 23mm are obviously ideal for taking down the Sabres. The 37mm, not so much. I mean, if you hit one, it's devastating, but the 37mm cannon is designed primarily for taking down bombers. And it looks like we may have an impact. And low pass over the Sabres, we definitely hit one there. And my wingman's currently informing me of the location of every single aircraft on the airfield. And I've just issued him attack orders, so he should engage any aircraft that attempt to take off. Okay, you done, mate? Nothing else left to say? Good. Okay, beginning my turn around, we're actually going to do a second run down the runway. I'm going to try and hit the Sabres from the far side and take a second crack at the transports at the far end. And just dropping my speed as I come in just to make sure I can pick a nice smooth path to engage. And then I'll be accelerating as I make the pass to try and avoid any anti-aircraft fire. Unfortunately, I'm going to mess this pass up. I'm not going to carry enough speed and I'm not going to accelerate quickly enough. And I'm also going to use the rudder a little bit heavily, trying to bring the nose onto target, which is going to destabilize the aircraft, and I'm going to have to pull out early. It does look like at least some of those rounds hit the first C-130 transport, but everything else was a miss. And we can see the detonation of the anti-aircraft rounds just behind the aircraft there. We are being fired on. And as we bank out, we can see a small explosion on the runway and then a giant pillar of smoke heading off into the buildings on the side. Initially, I thought this was just an F-86 Sabre that was taxiing out for takeoff that got destroyed by my wingman, and it was. There was an F-86 Sabre that was just about to deploy, and my wingman did destroy it. Unfortunately, and I'm not entirely sure what happened, either my wingman messed up his attack pass and hit the ground, or he was hit by anti-aircraft fire, but the trail of smoke heading off into the buildings was the remains of my wingman's MiG-15. So, banking in to line up for our next pass on the runway. Now at this point the 37mm did run dry in that last pass, so I've only got the 23mm left, so I'm going to do one good pass down the runway and then circle to see if anything takes off. I have to be relatively conservative with these 23mm, as if there is an aircraft that deploys after I've completed this run, the 23mm cannons are all that I have left to engage it. And I'm just trying to keep the reflex sight off the runway at the moment so I can get a little bit of a look at exactly what's going down without it obstructing my view. Trying to get a clean spot on exactly how many aircraft are still down there and intact and how many I've got left to hit. First burst into a C-130, and now we're lining up for the Sabres, and I've destabilised the aircraft a little, but we managed to get some hits on. And once again, exit the strafing run. However, this time we are going to pull for altitude and hold and just observe the runway and see what happens. So at this point I've circled the runway for about 2 to 3 minutes. I can't see any signs of movement on the ground, only smoke and craters. And I've also tried to contact my wingman to tell him to get back into formation and realised that I've been unable to contact him, so I'm now aware that he has been destroyed. This leaves me alone against the runway. The anti-aircraft defences are still active here, and at this point I'm the only aircraft that's left to shoot at. So I decide, at this point, I think I've done enough damage. It's time to take this bird back home. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had a great changeover from 2017 to 2018, a fantastic New Year's. I hope you all weren't too hungover. As always, remember to check the video description down below for links to all of my social media, links to my Twitch, and links to my Patreon for those that would like to help support the channel coming into 2018. And as always, remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.